Hey, and welcome to Board with Life News for November 8th. Today I'm going to talk about Dragon Ball Z Perfect Cell, an expansion for Voyages of Marco Polo, Jurassic Park The Chaos Gene, a whole ton of news from Renegade Games, and the Kickstarter for Root. Let's get to it. Hey, I'm Chris. Welcome to Board with Life News. Up first, IDW Games announced Dragon Ball Z Perfect Cell. I designed this game, full disclosure. So this has been a thing that I've been working on for the past year. I've kind of hinted at it a couple times in the news, and I'm really excited that it's finally announced. It's going to be the first in a series of games on Dragon Ball Z, because IDW got a partnership with Toei that owns Dragon Ball Z. And this is a co-op dice game that plays in about 30 minutes. It's pretty light, where basically you're rolling dice, you're kind of sharing dice with your other Z fighters you're taking on Cell cooperatively, and you get special powers, you learn new moves, stuff like that, so hopefully you get strong enough to defeat Cell. It was kind of a dream project for me. I grew up loving Dragon Ball Z. My first big industry job in the filmmaking industry was working for Funimation, editing Dragon Ball Z over here, so it was just the kind of perfect confluence of events where game design and Dragon Ball Z and stuff, so it really worked out. I'm really proud of the design I came up with, which was a very interesting experience because I've never done theme first, I've never done a co-op, I've never done all sorts of these things, but it turned out really well. I'm sure I'll talk a lot more about it in length later. Voyages of Marco Polo, a pretty big game from 2015, is getting an expansion, Agents of Venice. This will be its first expansion. It's going to include 2 different modules that change how you play the game, option for a 5th player, as well as 5 new characters. And if you played Voyages of Marco Polo, you know the characters are pretty dang asymmetric. Before the Vast days, where games like Vast existed that are insanely asymmetric, this was one of the most kind of asymmetric player games I had played. So adding 5 new characters will change the game a whole lot. Voyages of Marco Polo was a good game, but it's one of the very few that it was too similar to another game, so I didn't keep both. Normally that doesn't bother me that much, but for some reason Voyages of Marco Polo and Alien Frontiers are very, very similar and in kind of how they played, and I much prefer Alien Frontiers, so I got rid of Voyages of Marco Polo, but now this might change how Voyages of Marco Polo plays, so maybe I need to try it again. But it'll be out in early 2018. This week at MondoCon, Mondo Games announced that they will be releasing Jurassic Park The Chaos Gene, which is obviously a Jurassic Park-themed board game. Last year, Mondo, actually, I guess this year, Mondo, which is generally a poster and collectible company, took the leap into board games. They released the game The Thing, Infection at Outpost 31, which is coming out around now. People are just starting to get their copies. And so they're continuing that with this Jurassic Park game. The Thing, Infection at Outpost 31 was, I haven't played it, but it looked kind of underwhelming, where it looked very similar to The Resistance and Battlestar Galactica and kind of these hidden trader games, which of course you're going to have with The Thing. That makes perfect sense. But it didn't seem particularly interesting, and the thing that really surprised me is Mondo's prints are amazing. I've collected them for years. They're just incredible artwork, really, really cool geek stuff. And the game visually didn't look any better than other games these days. Games are looking better and better, and it didn't... I was expecting to just be blown away and it'd be super creative and how the graphic design was done and stuff like that. And especially the board just looks like a game board. I was really underwhelmed by it. So hopefully Jurassic Park the game, they're going to change that a little bit. It sounds like this is, keeping with Vast, going to be a highly asymmetrical game where there are different roles that you can play. So you can play park guest, where you're trying to get through the park alive. You can play Engine, which I guess is the person who genetically is making the dinosaurs, or you can play a pack of velociraptors that's trying to protect their young. So of course everybody's going to want to play the velociraptors, but hopefully this is more interesting than their last release. We'll see. So Renegade Games is a company that in the past couple years has really burst onto the scene as a company to watch. They've been releasing great game after great game, great graphic design, great artwork, great attention to details. So they have, coming out of Essen, they had so much news that I couldn't pick even 1 or 2 stories from it, so I'm just going to do a super quick rundown on all their announcements because honestly I'm pretty excited about all of them. So up first, they're releasing 3 new games that they announced. Topiary, which is a tile placement game about trying to get the best view of topiaries. Castel, which this one looked really interesting. It won the Cardboard Edison Award, and this is about a game about building human towers in the tradition of, in Catalonia, they do that. So really interesting theme, interesting looking game. And the third is Lucidity Six-Sided Nightmare, which was a Kickstarter game that they picked up for distribution. In it, you're in a dream, I guess, and you're pushing your luck, rolling dice, trying to gain dream power before you get corrupted by nightmares. So there's that. They're also going to reprint Byzans, and they're going to be importing the recent Essen releases, Dorkmas and Altiplano. Altiplano, of all those, is the one I'm most excited about. It's designed by the designer of Orleans, one of my favorite games of the past couple years, and it is a bag building game. So tons of news coming out of Renegade. They're just like skyrocketing towards being like, I mean, I think the company's only 3 years old and already they're like established as one of the main competitors that is not owned by like Asmodee, basically. So they're one of the like really up and coming small board game companies. This week's Kickstarter is Root. This is from Leader Games, who published Vast. I didn't intend for this to be like a Vast-themed news. It just, I guess the whole asymmetrical thing is really catching on, kind of like Legacy games. And it has the same artist as Vast. Incredible artwork. I just love the style. And this is an asymmetrical game for 2 to 4 players. In it, it's like this forest, and the forest folk are doing stuff. So the 4 different roles are the Marquis and her cats, who have taken control of the woodlands, the Eerie, who are trying to muster hawks to take back the woods, the Alliance of Woodland Animals, who have been displaced, and the Vagabond, who travels through the wood. In the Kickstarter, I think they've already unlocked an expansion for free that they're adding in that's going to add more roles, but these are like the base game roles. Yeah, I'm a little bit more interested in this than Vast, because Vast was so asymmetric that it was really hard to keep track of what other people were doing, and everyone was doing, you had to basically learn 4 different games to play it to understand, like, oh, that person's getting close to winning, or I need to do this to stop that person. Where this one, everyone has the same win condition, you just have to get 40 points, and everyone is playing from the same deck of cards. So it seems like it's going to be a lot less kind of like learning a bunch of different stuff, and it's going to be easier to see kind of everyone's progression and how to stop it. The only exception to that is the Vagabond, which this character is really interesting. They get points for helping other characters, but then they also have a secret goal that if they achieve, they win. So that seems like it's going to be cool, where you're helping people that, you know, aren't as far in the lead, so that's a cool catch-up mechanic, but then people that are in the lead that you're not helping are going to get mad at you and stuff like that, so that seems like a really cool idea. So yeah, this game looks great. I haven't played it, but I'm excited to try it, and it is $60 right now on Kickstarter, so if that looks interesting to you, go back that. Alright, that's the news for this week. Thanks so much for tuning in. Make sure you subscribe to this channel. Follow me on social media. I'm at Chris Bryan Games on Twitter and Instagram. There's going to be no news next week because I'm going to be at BGGCon. Along with that, if you're going to be at BGGCon, please stop by and say hi. I'd love to play a game with you. BGGCon, for the most part, I keep my schedule totally open, so I'm just going to be sitting down, playing games, and yeah, it's my favorite con of the year because I get to do that. I get to see everybody. It's a great con to meet people and hang out. I'm going to talk now about, I went to Essen last week and saw the release of my very first published board game, Favelas, and that was amazing. And I got to meet a few of you, which was crazy. Like in Europe, meeting people from different countries. This board game convention was super surreal. I'm really happy with how the production, with how WizKids did the production for Favelas. The tiles are super thick, the dice are nice and chunky, colors are very bright. Kwanchai Moria did the artwork, and I just am absolutely in love with it. It's still, it's crazy, like, walking into the convention and, like, seeing it on a table, seeing people play it, seeing people learn it from the rules was crazy. And being able to teach it to people, that it was just an awesome experience. And now there's all this stuff that I never thought about, like, the reviews are coming in on Board Game Geek, and that's the worst thing. And they're not bad reviews, generally, but, like, a 6, which is a fine review. That I give tons of games 6s. That means, like, oh, yeah, I'd happily play it. I might not buy it, but I'd happily play it. But boy, does a 6 sting, because it's not a 7, 8, 9, or 10. So I'm trying to, like, process all that. Somebody's already made, like, a foam core insert for the game, and they posted pictures, and it looks awesome. So it's really cool to, like, see it out in public, even though I think they only sold, like, they only brought, like, 100 copies of it, so there really aren't very many in the wild. I think the wide release is going to happen, I think early December is when they're expecting the shipments, maybe late November. And I think WizKids will have it at Board Game Geek Con, so if you're there, I'll definitely have my copy. I don't have my copy yet, which sucks, but I'm getting my copy at Board Game Geek Con, and I'll be, of course, showing it to everybody happily. So that was crazy. Essen, I need to do a whole nother video on Essen. Essen was so big. It was so big. It was big in a way I wasn't expecting. I was expecting it to feel like Gen Con, and it felt so much bigger because Gen Con has thousands of events happening all over the place that aren't just buying board games, where Essen is just buying board games and demoing board games at the booth. The floor space was massive. It was crazy. It was cool. There were tons of families there, tons of kids, which is not how Gen Con really is. So yeah, Essen was great. I don't recommend that you go to Essen if you're only going to go to like 1 or 2 conventions and you're in North America, because it was a lot of money, a lot of travel, a lot of time for what in essence is a big place where you can buy board games. So it was an awesome experience, but like it was also a whole lot of work. But yeah, that's it for the news. I've already rambled on enough. Again, I won't have news next week because of BGGCon, but then the next week I'll do my normal BGGCon wrap-up where I talk about all the games I played at BGGCon and some of my favorites. So thanks for tuning in, and I will see you in 2 weeks.